Des, Murta and I would like to welcome you to the February component of the Kildare County Council's Healthy Ireland programme. First thing we are going to do today is show you again to sow broad beans, which we did in the January component. Just to go back on it. These are hardy plants and they will germinate in colder conditions than most other vegetables. Broad beans such as Aqua Dulce Claudia, these ones that I have here in my hand, they can be sown in February and they'll be ready for harvesting in late May and June. You have to sow them individually in upright, 5 centimeters deep, in toilet roll tubes, or you can get toweling tissue tubes and cut them in half. They need those because they have long roots. So sow them in peat-free compost and place the pots on a windowsill just to germinate the seeds. Broad beans will grow in soil that is at least 8 degrees Celsius, and you can check the soil with a very useful tool in the garden, which is a soil thermometer, and it'll tell you what the temperature of the soil is. Don't sow them below 8 degrees Celsius. So when they germinate, the pots can be placed outside in a homemade cloche, as we made in January, or in a tunnel or a greenhouse for about 4 weeks, and then the seedlings can be planted outside about 15 centimeters apart in raised beds or containers. These were the ones we sowed in the January component, and I can see from the label here they were sown on the 3rd of the 1st, 2021. Dwarf Suttons they were called, and they weren't even germinated inside, believe it or not. I left them straight out into my homemade cloche, which we made in January, and you can see most of them have germinated, and I'm very pleased with that. And you can see the toilet roll tubes here. You can see they're very useful because look at the length of the root in one of these, and this is the little shoot going upwards. Wonderful to see this new life in spring. So look forward to growing them and eating them this year. In our January video, we showed you how to chit or sprout first early potatoes. These are planted outdoors in late March, and they can be harvested in late June after growing for about 90 days. February is the final month to start chitting first early new potatoes, so that they can be harvested in June. First, to recap. Chitting the potatoes, it gives them a head start so that they can be planted around St. Patrick's Day and harvested 80 days later. Make sure your seed potatoes are certified, which means they are free from diseases. Place the seed potatoes in empty egg cartons like these in cool, light, frost-free conditions, with the rose end, with the most eyes facing upwards. And these eyes, they're the actual tiny buds from which new stems grow. The end with the most eyes is, as I said, called the rose end, and it's very obvious here in these ones that are very nicely sprouted, and you can see nice stubby sprouts in them, not long and lanky. If they're exposed to too much light, that's what will happen, or heat even, the sprouts will grow long and spindly. So these are my favourite first early new potatoes. There are home guards, long potato has been around for a long, long time. Remember, secondarily potatoes, they can be treated in February as well. They're usually planted outdoors from early April to mid-April, and they take about 14 to 16 weeks, or around 110 days, until they can be harvested in July. Orla, Charlotte and British Queens are some examples of secondarily potatoes. If you look back on the January video, you'll see that we planted garlic bulbs and also onion sets. I started them off in a cloche, but immediately I saw the greenery and left them outside in the elements, because they need to be exposed to cold for a period of time in order that you'll have plenty of garlic cloves. So we planted them in window boxes, as you can see, because the window box is quite deep and it's wide here. They're planted 10 centimeters apart. I'll leave them outside now, and we'll be harvesting our lovely garlic later on in the year. We also planted our onion sets here, which was Stuttgarter Giant, and we planted these in modular trays in the cloche, the homemade cloche that we had, and you can see they're all nicely coming on there, good little root systems coming on. When March arrives, I will plant these out in a bed on which I have put plastic to warm the bed up. So now is a good time to put some kind of polythene, either clear or black, on beds to warm them up before planting out in March. It's lovely to think of sweet peas now, isn't it, in this kind of cold time of the year. But now is the time to sow the seeds, and because they need a long growing season. You can sow them in the autumn, but obviously that's gone. We sowed some in January, if you remember, and I put them in a cloche. These were Spencer waved mixed. These were the ones, and we put them into toilet roll tubes here, and you can see most of them have sprouted, little sprouts coming up on them. I will leave them for a while in the cloche until they get a bit stronger, and then I can leave them outside, because sweet peas are pretty hardy. So you place the seeds first when you have them. Place them in damp tissue in a Ziploc bag to fast track germination. Put the bag in the hot press until you see the tiny white roots emerging out from them. Then you sow the seeds 1.5 centimeters deep into toilet roll tubes filled with peat-free compost. Water them well and place the seeds in the tubes. Place them on a tray in a greenhouse tunnel or cloche, homemade cloche, and then you can plant outside under a wigwam when the seedlings are about 5 centimeters tall. Pinch out the growing tip, which encourages side shoots to grow and bushier plants. Now that we're in the month of February, it's a good time to look around at the nature around us, and many people will see these alder trees bearing catkins from February until March. Now both the male and the female catkins grow on the same tree, These ones hanging down here are the males, and these are the females. The male ones are bright yellow, and the female ones are red and oval, and they're kind of sticky to retain the pollen from the male catkins. So these ones here, the female ones, will change into cone-like fruits later on, full of seeds, which the birds, lots of birds, love. The reason these flowers aren't very colourful is because they don't require bees or butterflies or anything like that to pollinate them. So they don't need to be attractive and colourful looking to attract the insects. They rely on the wind to blow the pollen onto the female catkins, and that's why they hang down like that. Isn't nature wonderful? Other catkins you will see in February are the Hazel catkins. Both the male and the female flowers, they grow on the same tree. They can be seen now. The male ones, the male catkins here, are about, they hang down as well, as you can see, to catch the wind. And believe it or not, there are about 240 little tiny flowers, if you call them, on each one. Sometimes they're called lamb's tails, which is a good name for them, isn't it? The female flowers are tiny and they haven't opened yet, but they will have little red styles on them to collect the pollen. The wind pollinates these flowers, so again, like the alder, there's no need for them to have showy petals to attract bees. And if the female flowers are pollinated by the pollen from the male catkins of another tree, these little female ones will become nuts in the autumn. So hazel bears catkins from January until March. Another bit of nature to look at in February are the solitary bees. Imagine 95% of the world's 20,000 bee species are solitary bees, and the rest are social bees like the bumblebees and honeybees. Ireland has 99 bee species, of which 77, imagine, are solitary bees. They're much smaller than the other bees. For example, leafcutter bees, they line their nests with pieces of circular leaves which they cut from plants. As you can see here, leafcutter has been working on this particular leaf. You can see the little notch in the leaf that they use. Mining solitary bees, they make their nests in the ground. Now, they're excellent pollinators, solitary bees, and male and females, they emerge from hibernation in spring, and then after mating, the females build their nests in the ground or bare banks of earth, or in crevices in walls, or sometimes in cavities such as hollow stems. Female will make a little cake, imagine, from nectar and pollen, and lays an egg beside it. Then she will seal up the little chamber with a mud or a leaf. She continues depositing eggs and cakes in the tiny chambers until the crevice is filled, until she reaches the end. And then she'll seal up the end as well with either a mud or a leaf. Then shortly afterwards she dies, and then the young are left to fend for themselves. When they hatch out, they will eat the cake, and they'll emerge from their chambers the following spring. Now, to make one type of solitary bee habitat, you could drill clean holes with no splinters into a piece of untreated wood. The hole should be as long as the drill can manage, and they have to be between 2mm and 10mm in diameter. Hang it in a sunny place about 1.5 to 2 meters from the ground, and they have a slanting roof on it as well, and observe what happens. The slanting roof is to deflect the rain and keep it dry. This is one here which I purchased myself. It's for solitary bees. As you can see, these are the little cavities that they enter in, and several of them I noticed have been sealed with mud. I put up this last spring, and then if you look here, it's in here you can see the cavities here, and you can see all the little chambers sealed with mud, and the little larvae are inside, and the pollen and nectar cakes there are with them. So when they'll hatch out now later on, and the whole process will begin again. So it's interesting to actually hang this up in a sunny place in your garden, one of these ones. Or if you just leave bare ground facing south or southeast, you'll attract the mining bees, that they'll come along and make holes in it. So that's a very easy one to do. Just take off the grass and leave it bare. The mining bees will come on and lay their eggs in the crevices. You can sow peas in a gutter pipe in this month of February. The pipe, it should be the length of the bed, that raised bed that the peas eventually will go into. One end here is sealed, as you can see, with duct tape, and the other end is sealed as well, but it has a little slot on it for drainage, as you can see here. Leave that little gap there for drainage. And then when you have it filled with compost and the seeds are in it, you can place it on a brick and tilt it like that, and maybe put a tray at the far end, and it'll all drain into it. So you can, these are round peas, they're hardy, they're called meteor, and this is a good time of the year to actually sow them, but you can also sow them in the autumn. They're very, very hardy peas. Now what I've done is I pre-sprout them first in damp tissue. You can see some of these here have, and they're only in a day, I think. Yes, just a day, and well, actually 2 days. So they're beginning to sprout. As you can see here, I placed them in damp tissue and then put them into a Ziploc bag and left them in the hot press. Earlier on we were talking about sweet peas, and again I did the same thing with them. I put them into damp tissue and then put the tissue into a Ziploc bag, and I left them in the hot press. These took 3 or 4 days to actually sprout, so they're ready now to be sown in the toilet roll tubes. So first, and Phantom First is another one that you can grow at this time. It's a very hardy one. So you fill this up with peat-free compost like that. Nicely filled there, like this, and you could water it well before you actually sow the peas. Now, plant them, the peas, sow them in 2 rows, about 2.5 centimeters apart and about 5 centimeters deep. So we'll take the sprouted ones and work along. just cover them up. Keep them in a cloche or a tunnel maybe, or a greenhouse until they're about 5 centimetres high. Then you can plant them outside in a raised bed or in containers. And they're about 10 centimetres high. Provide them with twiggy supports or so that they can climb up to it and not sprawl on the ground. They will be ready to harvest, believe it or not, at the beginning of May. We have a video showing you how to sow peas in a gutter pipe. Peas are easy to grow in the school garden, and of course they're delicious to eat raw. You will need: use the peas which were planted in a gutter pipe in March. Dig the bed and mix in well-rotted manure or compost. Level the bed. Make a shallow trench about the width of the gutter pipe. Make another trench parallel with the first one. The distance between them should equal the eventual height of the peas. Slide the peas and soil gently into the trench from the gutter pipe. Firm the soil. Water well and place twigs in between them when they're about 10 centimetres high. February is a good time to sow fruit in containers or even outside in your garden. But if you don't have much space, you have to use containers. Autumn fruiting raspberries are a nice one to grow because these fruit between September and October. You grow them in good big sized pots here. These are 38 centimetre pot with drainage holes in the bottom of it, and I have them covered with chippings. Then you fill your pot with a mixture of 80% peat-free compost and 20% here of John Innes number 3, which is a very good compost with lots of nutrients in it to keep it fed. You keep your container in a sunny place. And autumn fruiting raspberries are very easy to prune because all you have to do is, well, first of all, feed in March, feed with blood fish and bone, which is a general organic fertilizer. Then mulch cover it over with compost, and then feed monthly thereafter with a general purpose fertilizer such as liquid seaweed. Now in February, the pruning, as I alluded to already, is very, very easy. All you have to do is prune all the stems down to ground level, and very, very, very easy to do. And it looks like terrible destruction, but it fruits on new canes. Now, very easy to remember. There we go. Right down to ground level. After doing that, I will feed it with a general organic fertilizer like blood fish and bones, and then I will mulch it here just to keep the nutrients down and to keep it kind of damp, and you'll have raspberries in September and in October. You can plant blackcurrants in containers in February as well, or out in the garden if you wish. So I'm planting today in a container. As you can see, I'm using a fine big pot again. Use one 40 centimetres to maybe 50 centimetres in diameter. Make sure there are holes in the bottom for drainage, and then you come along and you place drainage chippings in the bottom as well. Fill it with a good mix of like the autumn fruiting raspberry. Fill it with about 80% of peat-free compost and 20% of the very rich compost, John Innes number 3. Mix in plenty of grit as well, because blackberries, these are certainly blackcurrants, I mean, they like good drainage, so mix in plenty of grit. Also mix in a handful of general purpose organic fertilizer here, such as blood, fish and bone. Plant your plant here, and this is one which I grew from a cutting last year, very easy to grow from cuttings. Plant it here, you can see we have a good root in it, about 5 centimeters below the level of the planting, this one here, below the level of the compost. So I'm going to plant it down here, just 5 centimeters below this level of compost here. It will be planted as far down as this. That makes sure that it gets good stems here. Okay. After doing that, then you cut along the stem here about 5 centimeters, or maybe about 10 centimeters from the base here. So that would be just about here and about here. Looks terrible and looks like you're destroying it, but this operation will ensure healthy stems which will fruit next year, not this year. That's gardening. It teaches you patience. Mulch with grit or bark mulch, and you need to repot it every 3 years and put in fresh compost into it. But we'll be enjoying blackcurrants next year. You can also sow blackberries in containers in February. Again, use a container 40 centimeters to 50 centimeters in diameter. Use the same mix, but as I put the fruits we've already mentioned, but add grit for good drainage, and again put chippings in the bottom. Plant it about 2.5 centimeters deeper than it was previously planted and watered well. In March, then you feed it with an organic general fertilizer such as blood, fish and bone, and then you mulch it as well. Keep it in a sunny place like the other fruits. Do not let it dry out. Feed monthly thereafter with a liquid, general purpose liquid fertilizer such as liquid seaweed. Remove the fruiting canes after it has finished fruiting. Repot it every 3 years. And you can also plant thornless blackberries. These can be grown now in large pots as well, and of similar compost to the raspberry. Feed and treat in the same way as a raspberry. Follow the instructions on the packet regarding pruning. We can start thinking of bees in February, and hardy annuals are good for pollen and nectar, some of them better than others. These two are very, very good. We have Californian poppy here, and we have Love in a Mist here, Miss Jekyll. So Californian poppy and Love in a Mist, and we've got these two here. So these can be sown now in modular trays in a seed compost. Now you can buy a compost in a garden centre, but you can make up your own one by mixing 50% with 50% peat-free compost. Mixing the two of them together makes a nice open compost for sowing seeds in. Like that. So that's what we use. So we fill our modular tray here with the compost. Give it a little tap down like that to settle it. And then we come along and we take another modular tray and just leave that one there. And we do that just to press down the compost, firm it down like that. Water it well and then sow a pinch of seeds, just a pinch here in each one. So you go through the whole lot. Having sown your seeds then in the modular trays, cover with vermiculite and place in a cloche or in a greenhouse or in a tunnel. This is what vermiculite looks like. It's a clay material, and the great thing about it, it's very light and it's ideal for sowing seeds. There's no lumps in it and it doesn't compact either. Also, it draws away excess water from the compost, thus preventing a disease called dampening off, which affects new seedlings. Transplant them then when they're about 5 centimeters. Plant them into trays 5 centimeters apart into trays of peat-free compost. Then, when the seedlings have their first 2 leaves on them and a pair of seed leaves, plant them outside in a bed or a container in a sunny spot when they're big enough to handle. Feed weekly with tomato food and deadhead them regularly. Then you'll have loads of Californian poppies and Nigella or love in a mist for yourself to enjoy, and also for the bees. Finally, warm the bed, or warm the beds in February for planting later on in March and April. And that's a very simple thing to do. First of all, if you haven't done it already, put in maybe 10 centimeters of well-rotted compost or manure on top of the mulch, and then cover it with clear plastic, or you could use black polythene or a weed suppressor. Now this will bring the temperature of the soil up 2 or 3 degrees Celsius. Well worth having a little experiment yourself. Just get a soil thermometer and put it in the bed covered with the plastic and see what the temperature is. And then try and take it out and try it in a bed with no plastic or polythene on it, and you'll be surprised at the difference the soil, because soil temperature is important when you're putting in seeds and seedlings. So Des and I would like to thank you for joining us for the February component of the Kildare County Council's Healthy Ireland initiative. We're hoping that you get out and about in the month of February. Gardening is very good for your physical and your mental health, and all the research proves that. Getting out there, being active in the fresh air, get the children out as well, working with you. And we look forward to seeing you for the March component of the Kildare County Council's Healthy Ireland